we're alive right now. So, cool.
So
So,
okay, you have the link for the tweet, right?
no, I don't have the link to the specific tweet. I just have the picture, but I have his Twitter.
Okay, okay. I'll send it to you.
So I read the suttas that he references, and I mean, not to spoil the rest of the stream or kill any sense of mystery, but it's pretty obvious that that it was these things are not in support of caste. So does he
Yeah,
like
really.
yeah, does he expect people to just see his citations and not actually read?
Yeah, I clearly don't know. Like the same citations that he has referred to in his images in that very tweet. If you go and open those tweet and you read the entire text in that image, you actually get the clear idea of who is talking and who is answering, and what are the questions that are being raised here in this very sutta.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he just went ahead and mindlessly typed in some keywords and he read some few things and he was like, oh, this is very insupportive of the Varna system or the caste system. Buddha is clearly a Hindu in all its rights, right? So um, I have this word for these jackfruits. So these guys are, like whenever they read words like jati, Brahmin, Brahma in the Buddhist suttas, all the blood they have just starts rushing into their knees, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
just lose all sense of their rationality and forget that they have to read the entire sutta there.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And also like they understand the word out of context because like the word changed in meaning since then,
They
right?
have this projection, they have this preconceived notion about what Buddha is. And that is something that just really hinders their um, ability to reasonably differentiate Buddha from their own teachings. They want to appropriate Buddha as much as they can. So they, make up these stories in their heads. Buddha must be a Hindu because Buddha never said that I am creating this new religion or something. Because whenever he preached his Dhamma, he just called it Dhamma, right? And that's
Mm.
basically, if you have to translate it into Hindi or Sanskrit, it's basically dharma. So the only thing that he thought was dhamma. So in that sense, they're not wrong when they say that he did not create a new religion in a sect sense. But then clearly his teachings are very different from the teachings that you guys follow, right? And you should be able to differentiate them because let's say there are certain foundations about your own religion and Buddha clearly rejects those foundational basis of your religion. So how can it be that some guy who is saying, this is not something that I agree on, this is not something that I believe, and this is clearly not something that I practice, and this is clearly not something that I would like to preach to the followers of Buddha, right?
Mm.
So how come you still wanna badly, desperately try to appropriate Buddha in every sense? And they just try to paint Buddha as a casteist who uh, who had nothing to do with the questions of these evil practices in the society, right?
Mm.
But clearly, we can find it in every sutta out there that Buddha has talked about this, and he has clearly said that I don't care. He prescribes to the idea of purification of all the four varnas as opposed to the idea of Brahmins only being pure, right?
Right, right. So in what he's saying, just to read it out loud, right? What this Abbas person is saying is Buddhism and caste system. It is widespread misinformation that Buddha Dharma was against Varna, Jati, and related hierarchy. Truth is that Buddha Dharma followers never went against it. Let's examine primary sources. And he lists three or four, and which clearly talk of four Varnas: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. And like, if we read them, I guess we can go ahead and read them. Let me
Yes.
get the
So
Mother Sutta
the
since he
point that he's
was
trying to
sharing.
make here is that Buddha was against like it's a widespread misinformation. So he's referring to the Buddhist people out there who speak that Buddha clearly rejected these notions of caste discrimination, right?
Right.
Um, Madhura Sutta is a great start, but I would say we can start with the Astalayan Sutta.
Okay. Sure. He does say that's number three on his list, but yeah.
Yes, that's number three. Because Madhur Sutta is not the sutta where the Buddha is speaking. Madhur Sutta is where the other Arhant monk is speaking, right? We'll come to Madhur Sutta as well, but then we should straight away go to the words of the Buddha first,
Okay.
right? Um,
So this is the background here is that some Brahmins were wanted to send one of their students to debate the Buddha
yes.
about the whether other castes are pure
Uh,
or could be purified or are capable.
According to the ways of the Brahmins, it's the rightful place and the rightful duty of only the Brahmins to take sannyas, and it's their duty alone to go and do this work for spiritual enlightenment. Anyone else, they just state outright would call them, hina, or um, like you find instances wherein religious books you would find that women are not capable of getting enlightened, right? The Shudras are not capable of getting enlightened,
Mm.
right? So
Mm.
uh, that's the that's the context here, that the Brahmins even then had this notion that apart from this one set of community, everyone else should be kept away from the um, basic knowledge that you could get. And you see, back then there would be these Brahmins who would teach religion, but that's the way that everything was being taught in those days, right?
Mm.
If you have to read grammar and if you have to read the linguistic parts, right, you go to a religious teacher who is well versed in grammar, and then he uses those literature about your own religion to teach you on religion and the other stuffs as well, right?
Mm.
So even though the I would say the idea about a very special sect having access to knowledge, it was just limited for the Brahmins, and as far as those boundaries were to be challenged, those could only be done by the ruling classes, the likes of the kings, right? The rest
Yeah,
were not allowed to study anything.
like the kings and um, Brahmins could send their children to like the Brahmins, like forget what it's called,
The Gurukuls
school,
were,
yeah, schools, gurukuls, right, where they would be taught to read and write, but anyone can join the sangha.
yes. Um, so I think we could start here. So that's the context that people should know that back then the Brahmins had this monopoly on who they could teach and who they could not. And it was clearly a closed cooperation of Brahmins for Brahmins, and um, they would just open it for the ruling classes, the likes of the Kshatriyas or the kings, right?
Mm,
They would never open it for the Kshatriya women as well, right? They would never open it for the Brahmin women as well, right? So this idea that only the Brahmins are pure and they are the only ones who are capable of learning the divine knowledge that is bestowed upon these people. So that's the context in which they consider the purification of people, right?
right, right. And so here
So
in the thing, it's a bunch of Brahmins go to one of theirs, Salayana, who
yes,
they say this Salayana is um has
a very
mastered the
bright Brahmin,
Vedas,
right?
yeah, very bright, and is very good at like the linguistics part,
Right.
and he knows all the grammar and he knows them word by word. So he's very learned. So they go to him and they say, this ascetic Gautama, which is the Buddha, advocates purification for all four classes, which are the, Kshatriya, Brahmins, Sudra. What was the last one? Vaisya. Vaisya.
Vaishya
Yeah,
and Shudra.
Vaishya and Sudra. And he advocates purification for all four classes. Please debate with Gautama about this. So at first, Asalina is hesitant because um, Gautama is a speaker of principle, and speakers of principles are hard to debate, he says. And he says, I'm not capable of debating with Gautama about this. And I guess this part is to say that the Buddha is consistent,
Yes.
right?
Because these are the people who have debated Gautama on various other accounts as well, right? These are the people who have lost those debates because Buddha would just clearly not entertain their questions that were not anywhere helpful for the people, right? And
Mm-hmm.
these were some of the questions that Buddha did not think were worth even giving his attention to at times. Because people would bring up this question again and again and again. But out of his kindness, he would answer them as much as he can in the ways that he should.
Mm. Right, right. And then because these texts repeat these things just to make it completely clear and to like not miss it, right? So make sure
Yeah.
nobody misses it. They say it again. This ascetic Gautama advocates purification for all four classes. It says Chaturvarna, right? That's what this means.
Yes.
Sutta means purification. So they ask him again, and sure, they're trying to persuade him. And so again, Asalina says no. And then
So the
for,
third thing is like, I'll go and definitely try to debate this aesthetic Gautama.
yes, yes. Clearly, gentlemen, I'm not getting through to you when I say the ascetic Gautama is a speaker in principle, but they are hard to debate. I am not capable of debating with the ascetic Gautama. Nevertheless, I shall go at your bidding. So he's finally like, I haven't gotten through to you, but you're still asking me, so I'm gonna go. Fine. Um, so Asalina goes with a large group of Brahmins to the Buddha and exchange greetings with him. When the greetings and polite conversation were over, he sat down to one side and said to the Buddha, Mr. Gautama, the Brahmins say only Brahmins are the best class, other classes are inferior. Only Brahmins are the light class, other classes are dark. Only Brahmins are purified, not others. Only Brahmins are Brahma's true born sons, born from his mouth, born of Brahma, created by Brahma, and heirs of Brahma. What do you say about this? So this is him clearly saying the Brahmins say, right? This isn't the words of the Buddha. He's saying, hey, Buddha, the Brahmins say these things. That the Brahmins are better. Then the Buddha here is replying after he finishes and asks this question. And he says back to Asalayana, but Asalayana, Brahmin women are seen menstruating, being pregnant, giving birth, and breastfeeding. Yet, hold on one sec. Yeah. Even though they're born from a Brahmin womb, they say only Brahmins are the best class, other classes are inferior. Only Brahmins are the light class, other classes are dark. Only Brahmins are purified, not others. Only Brahmins are Brahma's true-born son, born from his mouth, born from Brahma, created by Brahma, heirs of Brahma. So he's saying like clearly you're born from women who are normal
Yes.
and
So
mhm.
this idea that the Brahmins are some miracle of this god Brahma who has given birth to uh, these sect or these community of Brahmins, and he specifically favors these people in so many ways. And Buddha is clearly saying, but how do you know? You were clearly born from a woman's womb who in her cycle is seen to be menstruating, is seen to be getting pregnant, and is seen to be breastfeeding the babies. That's how you guys
you're
are born, right?
you're
So,
born like everybody else,
yes,
right? In the same way as everybody else from women. So how do you know that how can you say that you're born from his mouth? I don't see you crawling out of some guy's mouth, right? Some god's mouth, right?
yes.
You're
So
born the same way
then
as
he goes
us.
on to add that, even though you see the men menstruating, you see the women being pregnant, and you see them breastfeeding, you see them raising the kids, and still the Brahmins have this notion that is Brahmins are superior, the rest are inferior. Like, these are the questions that he's bringing up, and these are the lines that Abhyas guy is quoting in his own tweet as well. Like, if you go to his tweet, um,
Did you link the full tweet?
yeah, the second tweet, right? So open the images in that tweet.
I did
Um,
open okay, I found his thing, but that's great. He hates communism as well. We'll come back to that some other time. Let's see. It's just like he's tweeted a lot. When is this? October 14th, 2022. This guy tweets a lot. That's what I'm.
I've sent you the tweet link on Discord. Can you check?
Yeah.
Mm, for some reasons, my mic went off.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, okay.
so open
So
those images, right? Uh,
that's the.
um, the second image, I guess. not this one. I think the fourth, the third, I guess.
This
Third.
one, yeah, the
Oh,
third.
yes. So the line he's quoting is, "No, Master Gautama, if they acted the same way, the same result would befall an aristocrat, Brahmin, merchant, or a worker, for if any of the four classes were to kill, right?" Um, so if you read the entire text,
I don't
the starting of the
understand.
text,
Yeah, so he just like highlighted that part, but if we actually look at that part, let's look at it. Um, so
after that, he's giving the example of the Persia, right?
yeah, that was interesting where he's like, in Persia and Greece, people
Yeah,
don't have the four varnas, and there's only two classes, and
yeah,
there's class mobility. People can move up and down.
yes.
That's very interesting that he's referring to a different place as
Mhm.
well. Let's see. So he's saying, suppose an aristocrat. So this is um, so
This is
the what do you think, Asalina? And then this is the Buddha speaking, saying, yeah, it is because the quote opened and it hasn't closed up. Okay.
yes,
Suppose an aristocrat were to kill living creatures, steal, commit sexual misconduct, use speech that's false, divisive, harsh, or nonsensical. So basically, he's listing all sorts of things that accumulate bad karma, right?
right,
Um, when they die, when their body breaks up after death, they would be reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld hell. Would this happen only to an aristocrat and not a Brahmin? Or suppose a peasant or a menial were to act in the same way. Would the result fall on a peasant or menial and not on a Brahmin? So he's asking, does being a Brahmin protect you in the afterlife if you commit bad karma, right?
right.
If you
But here's the thing. These people do actually believe that the karmic consequences of the deeds that the Shudras do and the deeds that a Brahmin does, they clearly give different fruits for the same work that they might do. Um, like there was this very famous quote where Gandhi would quote that, the Shudras should not actually try to earn money from uh, other other works, like the works which require study, which require skills of different kind of skill set, right? So
mm,
these are some notions that these Brahmins had, that clearly, even if the Shudra were to perform the same tasks and if he were to live the same life as a Brahmin, uh, he would not get those fruits because he has been born into a family. He has been born into a womb of a mother who is clearly from a lower caste, and so his deeds are practically useless. So this is the Buddha comparing that. Do you really think that for a man, if he were to commit bad deeds, would he not go to the underworld? Would he not um, face the consequences of those bad deeds, whether he's a Brahmin, whether he's a Shudra, whether he's a Vaishya, or whether he's a Kshatriya?
right.
So Aslan goes and says, "No, Master Gautama," right? In the
Mm-hmm.
same way, he gives more uh, analogy, and the usual analogy that he usually gives is um the difference in the nature of fire, uh, right?
Yeah,
But
but
this,
you're skipping ahead. Hold on. Let's go one by
yeah,
one.
yeah, right.
So then he's
You know,
Asalina, he asked him like, if you accumulate bad karma, does being a Brahmin change the outcome? And Asalina replies, no. And Gautama says, oh no, Asalina says no. And if they acted the same way, the same result would befall an aristocrat, a Brahmin, a peasant, or a menial. And that's the very key, I think, in Buddhism is like, you have control no matter what your birth is, right? if with
Yes.
your actions you can be purified, no matter who
Yes.
you are, right?
Yes.
So based on actions, you get the same result no matter what you um,
Yes.
were born as.
So this very idea of Arya Ashtangik Marg, right? So this idea where um, the Buddhists say that an Arya is converted into an Arya after walking in the path shown by the Buddha, which is the Arya Ashtangik Marg. So it is also known as the path to purification or the Vishuddhi Magga, right? So the path to purification is open to everyone. Even it's open to the women, it's open to the lower caste, it's open for people from all walks of life. People can
Mm-hmm.
come in, they can join in. And this is something that the Brahmins clearly oppose. And this is where Buddha is clearly trying to talk about this problem with Asalaya, that clearly the same karma reaps. If someone were to reap, they would sow the same. Uh, they would reap this same fruit, right? If they were to sow the same deeds, right?
Right, right, right. And being born Brahmin doesn't help you anyway. And then the opposite is asked. Suppose a Brahmin were to refrain from um, getting bad karma and instead getting good karma. Would they be reborn in a good place? And would this happen only to a Brahmin, not to an aristocrat, peasant, or menial? And Asayana answers, no. If they get good karma, then the same good thing would happen to everybody. You know, doesn't matter their caste.
Mm.
For if any of the four classes were to refrain from killing living creatures and um, stealing, committing sexual misconduct, from using speech that's false, etc., etc., when their body breaks up after death, they'd be reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. Then what is the source of the Brahmins? Then, you know, the Buddha asks, well, what is the source of the Brahmins' certainty and forcefulness in this matter that they make this claim? And I guess this is the part where we say, like, we don't really dwell on the stuff that doesn't profit. Um,
Yes.
it just says, even though you say this, still the Brahmins maintain their belief. That's all that really they go into. They don't really go into the nitty gritty of what Brahmins think and why,
Yep.
um, because it doesn't really profit them to dwell on that. And so then the Buddha goes on and asks, is only a Brahmin capable of developing a heart of love, free of enmity and ill will for this region, and not an aristocrat, peasant, or menial? And again, Asalina says, aristocrats, Brahmins, peasants, and menials can all do so. So this heart of love, this compassion, right? That's
Yes.
like central to Buddhism
Yes.
is developing compassion because that
Yes.
frees you from the desire to be territorial and to fight other people or to have attachments and fight other people over keeping the things that you're attached to. And that is freeing. And that is what is purification in Buddhism, right?
Yes, exactly. That's the I think that's the essence of what the purification in Buddhism is. Whereas in the Brahminical version, the purification is you do some deeds and the gods liberate you when you die, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's clearly not the case in Buddhism. So the way that these Brahmins would talk about purification and the context that these Brahmins were talking with the Buddha is that um, the fruits of the deeds that you do today for all these four varnas, they can't have the same fruits for the same deeds because they are clearly different in all respects. So they usually talk about the afterlife. What would happen? Do you think that they would get the moksha Do you think that they can get enlightened? Do you think that they would get um, one with the Brahma, the Almighty, right? So, in that sense, they will keep on bringing up their part of purification. But in Buddhist version, it's clearly very different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this line is clearly the essence of what the purification in Buddhism means.
Right, right. And then Asalina replies, all four classes are capable of developing a heart of love, purifying in the Buddha sense, free of enmity, ill will, and ill will for this region. And then why are the Brahmins so sure that they can make the claim that only Brahmins can be purified? And then even though you say this, still the Brahmins maintain their belief, is what Asalina says. And now we're going into like analogies, right?
Yes.
What do you think, Asalina? Is only a Brahmin capable of, going to the river using soap and washing off dust and dirt and not an aristocrat, peasant, or menial? And Asalina is like, no, all four classes are capable of doing this. And why are they so sure? Even though you say this, the Brahmins maintain their belief. And then, what do you think, Asalina? Suppose an anointed aristocratic king were to gather 100 people, and we're getting to now it's the fire part, right? 100 people of various births, and say to them, "Please, gentlemen." So get 100 people of all different castes, and give them some wood of different kinds: teak, sal, frankincense, sandalwood, or cherry wood. And so
Types of wood.
these are like the expensive wood, right? So he's like, give the aristocrats and the Brahmins or chieftains the nice wood,
Yeah.
right? And ask them to
Mm.
make a fire. And then um for the take people who are born from like families of corpse workers, hunters, bamboo workers, chariot makers, or scavengers, and give them, and so these are lower castes. I'd
Yes.
give them wood from a dog's drinking trough, a pig's trough, or a dustbin, or castor oil wood. Light a fire and produce heat. What do you think, Asalina? Would only the fire produced by the high class people with good quality wood have flames, color, and radiance and be useful as fire, and not the fire produced by the low class people with poor quality wood? And the response is no, Mr. Gautama. The fire produced by the high class people with good quality wood would have flames, color, and radiance and be usable as fire. And so would the fire produced by the low class people with poor quality wood. For all fire has flames, color, and radiance and is usable as fire. So,
Then he's asking this question again. What is this forcefulness in this matter?
yeah. And then even so you say that, the Brahmins still believe what they believe. Okay. But I think the point here is like, you have a life to use up, just like this wood to burn, right? And
Yes.
whether or not your life is the life of an aristocrat or a Brahmin, or the life of a lower caste person, if whatever wherever you are, you can still use your life to attain enlightenment, right? You can still, I
Right.
guess, burn your days, I guess, meditating and attaining enlightenment and
Right.
cultivating Buddha heart, right?
Right.
And you can still do that no matter what quality, you know, uh, of your situation is, right? Um,
Clearly. So these are the differentiations, right? The Buddhist monastic orders would take anyone in who would want to join their ways of lives, right?
mhm.
But like the Brahminical version, only the people who belong from a certain caste would be allowed in certain rooms, certain classes. certain ceremonies, right? So these are some clear differences that we can see, and I don't see how this sutta can be painted as a sutta where Buddha is not refuting casteism. It just clearly goes to show that Buddha has dealt with the problem in detail, that I don't see any difference between the effort of one and the other. If anyone were to do the same deeds, they would follow the same vipaka, right?
Right, right, right.
So, so he doesn't see the any difference between the freedom of one and the freedom of other.
Mm-hmm.
Is the essence of that. But the
Right.
essence of the Brahmanical version of non-purification of the four classes is that the freedom of one is different from the freedom of the other, and that's their approach. The Buddhist approach is clearly different.
Right. It is. It is
As long
clearly.
as you have a capable body and you can perform the acts and you can do all the things that are necessary to cultivate um, a pure heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
should do it.
Right, right, right. And we'll come back to the whole healthy body part. I was actually kind of surprised to read that in one of the other um, suttas, but it was cool to read too. Um, so, and then he goes into suppose an aristocrat boy was to sleep with a Brahmin girl and they have a child. Would that child be an aristocrat after the father or a Brahmin after the mother? They could be called either. What do you think, Asalina? Suppose a Brahmin boy was to sleep with an aristocrat girl and they had a child. Would that child be called an aristocrat after the mother or a Brahmin after the father? They could be called either. Suppose a mare were to mate with a donkey and she gave birth to a mule. Would that mule be called a horse after the mother or a donkey after the father? It's a mule, as it is a crossbreed. I see the difference in this case, but not in the previous cases. So, can you explain that part?
So this part about the sutta, I'll just open up in my so these are the lines where he's giving a difference. We can actually go and read the head, and I'll explain the entire essence of that. Um, can you read?
Yeah, yeah, I can continue reading. What do you think, Asalina? Suppose there were two Brahmin students who were brothers who had shared a womb. One was an educated reciter and the other one wasn't. Who would the Brahmins feed first as an offering of food for ancestors, an offering of a dish of milk, rice, a sacrifice, or a feast for guests? They'd feed the student who was an educated reciter. For how could an offering to someone who is not an educated reciter be very fruitful? What do you think, Asalina? Suppose there were two Brahmin students who were brothers who had shared a womb. One was an educated reciter, but one was unethical, of bad character, while the other was not an educated reciter, but was ethical and of good character. Who would the um, Brahmins feed first? They'd first feed the student who was not an educated reciter, but was ethical and of good character. For how can an offering to someone who is unethical and of bad character be very fruitful? Firstly, you relied on birth, Asalina. Then you switched to education. Then you switched to abstemious behavior. Now you've come around to believing in purification for the four classes, just as I advocate.
Right. So this is where we can stop, right? So um, you see, uh, uh, there's this concept about keeping your bloodline pure, right? So if a Brahmin girl were to marry a aristocrat boy and they were to have a child, he's saying that they could be either, right? So there is no difference in the freedom of that boy choosing what he could be, right?
Right.
The second example that he's giving is, suppose a Brahmin boy were to sleep with an aristocrat girl, and they had a child. What would the child be? An aristocrat from the mother, or a Brahmin after the father? And he's saying Asalan is going. They could be either.
Mm-hmm.
So then again, he's giving this idea where, you know, the mother and father, they are clearly of different origins, but the son has the freedom to choose either, that he can be anything that he would want to, right? And now when it comes to this part, then um, if if um, if a mare were to mate with a donkey and she gave birth to a mule, what would that mule be called? A horse after the mother, or a donkey after the father?
Mm-hmm.
It's a mule, as it's a crossbreed. I see the difference in this case, but not in the previous. So this is where he's talking about, like, I see a difference here, but I don't see a difference there. And then Buddha goes on to give him one more example, that what do you think, Aslan? Suppose there were two Brahmins, both had the same mother, right? But one was educated and one was well versed, and the other were not,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was just about his freedom and their own choices that define themselves, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not actually dependent on the uh, mother, it's not dependent on the father of what origin they are. And this is the notion that the Brahmins have, right? That the mother and the father must be pure Brahmins for the son or the daughter to be called a Brahmin, right? And they have um, this purity and this sanctity in marriage, right? That
Mm-hmm.
they really want to preserve. That if one were to marry some Shudra, then the child might not be of a pure birth, and he might not get to do the same things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where he's explaining to Asalan that, you see, that having different types of mother and father does not really change what the person who is born out of those two parents can choose. It's completely up to his own choices, what he decides, what he exactly wants to do with his own life, right? So he just goes, right. The line where he's talking about, you went from birth, then you went from ethical. Okay, Asalana, first you relied on birth, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said birth is the only way of being pure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then a Brahmin, an aristocrat were to marry, and they could be either.
Mm-hmm.
So there, that idea of you keeping purity by birth is shattered,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go by education, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you switch to the behavior and the practices that one follows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you have come around to believing in the purification of the four classes, just as I advocate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the essence of this sutta, that you start with Brahmins wanting to discuss this question about why does the Gautama prefer and preach the purification of all four classes, when clearly there's a difference in the freedom of one and the freedom of the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's their notion of how this system of Shuddhikaran should work.
Right. I mean, and I think like the whole point about like how if a horse and a donkey mate, they make a mule, which is different,
Right,
versus like when two people of different castes have a baby, it's just a
right,
human. All right, we're not different
right,
species. Like horses and donkeys are different species. We're just one species,
right.
right?
Clearly,
And
clearly.
yeah, so and then he goes into like the different questions, and he says, you're just moving the goalposts. There, there's
Yes,
there's nothing like solid. There's nothing.
There's
No
nothing
one thing.
Sanatan in that. There is nothing that you can say that this is an eternal law.
Right.
That's the essence of it.
Right.
And that's what I make of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's nothing solid. First, you said it was birth that mattered, but then you said birth doesn't matter if if they're not educated. But then you said if they're acting badly, then the education doesn't matter. And so what actually matters, right? So,
Right. Now you have come a full circle and you have actually you have succumbed and you you've now started believing in the purification of all four classes, right?
just as I advocate. And so this part is important, is like, I mean, whatever, if any Brahmin sees this, any or anybody who's casteist sees this, and it's like still like the other Brahmins, like in this thing, it's like still the Brahmins believe in what they believe, even though you say all this, right? The
Right.
point here is the Buddha is saying, now you've come around to believing in the purification of the four classes, just as I advocate, right? So
Yes.
the Buddha is saying, I advocate in the purification of the four classes. I don't
Yes.
believe in the caste system.
Yes. I don't believe in the differentiation and the freedoms are different for all these classes.
Right,
That's his essence.
right,
Right.
right. And then he goes, do you want to keep going?
We can keep going, but I think we get the point, right?
Yes.
And the next section is about how people say that, the relations between a Brahmin mother and a Brahmin father is sacred. And, he goes on to speak that how do uh, how do you know that your back 7 generations, your grandmother was pure Brahmin? How do you know exactly? Right.
Right, right.
That's the essence. We can clearly read that if we want to.
Sure. Let's see. So then he goes into like a story about you know, this dude Devala the Dark, who has decided to troll some Brahmins who are sitting around circle jerking, saying like Brahmins are awesome, and um, they he hears Devala hears some Brahmins circle jerking and saying only Brahmins are Brahma's true-born sons, born from his mouth, born of Brahma, created by Brahma, heirs of Brahma, and he hears that, and he puts on his monk robe and goes to the courtyard. And then he
So
wondered
I
about
think
the
we can
yard.
just skip to the part where
Hi, Silence.
Devala said to them,
Oh, one
Devala said
sec.
to
One
them,
sec. Someone's reading. Hello, Silence. We're reading a sutta called the Asalayana Sutta from the Buddhist text. And the reason we're doing it is because we're debunking this person who said that the Buddha supported the caste system. Uh, and he cites these sources, so we're reading everything that he cited to check, whether or not his assertion that the Buddha supported caste is true. So yeah, so where do you want to skip to?
um, so they explain about the part that there is some guy, Devala, right, said to them. So that's where we can start, right?
Yeah, so like he starts trolling them and walking around his their courtyard and being like, I can't see these Brahmin seers. And so they curse him, but the more they curse him, the more attractive, good looking, and lovely he became.
Hmm.
Then those Brahmin seers said, our fervor is in vain, our spiritual path is fruitless. For when we used to curse someone to become ashes, ashes they became. But when the more we curse this one, um, the more attractive, good looking, and lovely he becomes. And Devala says, gentlemen, your fervor is not in vain. Your spiritual path is not fruitless. Please let go of your malevolence towards me. We let go of our malevolence towards you. But who are you, sir? Have you ever heard of the seer, Devala the Dark? Yes, sir. I'm he. Then they approached Devala and bowed to him. And Devala said to them, I heard that when the seven Brahmin seers, yeah, sure, we can do it too. I heard that when the seven Brahmin seers had settled in leaf huts in a wilderness region, they had the following harmful misconception. Only Brahmins are the best class, other classes are inferior. Only Brahmins are the light class, other classes are dark. Only Brahmins are purified, not others. Only Brahmins are Brahma's true-born sons, born from his mouth, born of Brahma, created by Brahma, ears of Brahma. That's right, sir. But, and then Deva continues and asks, do you know that can you prove that your birth mother only had relations with a Brahmin and not with a non-Brahmin? And they say, no, we don't know that. And then he asks the Brahmins, do you know whether your birth mother's mothers back to the seventh generation only had relations with Brahmins and not with non Brahmins? And the Brahmins say, we don't know that. But do you know? And then he asks again whether your birth father only had relations with a Brahmin woman and not with a non Brahmin. And they say, we don't know that. And then he says, going back seven generations, can you prove that your father and father's fathers only had relations with Brahmins and not with non-Brahmins? And they say, you can't prove that. And then he says, but do you know how an embryo is conceived? And then they say, we do know that. An embryo is conceived when these three things come together. A mother and a father come together. The mother is in the fertile phase of the menstrual cycle, and the virile spirit is ready. One sec. But do you know for sure whether that virile spirit is an aristocrat, a peasant, or a menial? We don't know. In that case, sir, don't you know what you are? In that case, sir, we don't know what we are. Given that even those seven Brahmin seers could not prevail when pursued, pressed, and grilled by the seer Devala in their own genealogy, how could you prevail now, being grilled by me on your own genealogy, when you and your traditions do not so much as pick up as the last spoonful?
This is where I think he's getting a bit sarcastic.
I think so. I mean, the amount of like, I mean, to say in like disrespect, right? Let's just say that, right? The amount of disrespect that this part shows, like for Buddhism, it's not like, I mean, for Buddhism, which is very respectful, having a Devala go and troll them and then curse him, and then the curses just make him beautiful, right? Like that just is very interestingly, like it shows that this text is biased towards the guy who's saying that caste is a harmful misconception, right?
Right.
And Devala is a, a seer that heard some Brahmins talk about how Brahmins were better than other castes, and he decided to go set them right. Because he wanted to, and specifically he says they have a harmful misconception.
Misconception.
The following harmful misconception: only Brahmins are the best. Only Brahmins are right. So he's saying like this is a harmful misconception that they have, and I wanted to correct that, right? And then he goes into asking like, can you prove that your genetics is pure? Going back all these generations, how are you sure?
Yes. That you are
And
Brahmin, because I think there is this Shastra where, like, for you to be called a pure Brahmin, you have to have like um, seven generations of pure Brahmin mother and Brahmin father, if I'm not wrong.
is there a Shastra that says that? Probably.
Is uh, there is, like, I've heard this, but I don't know exactly where exactly is it written somewhere.
Right. Right. So
Because I've heard, like, there are families which still search for people who's like I had this friend, um, like their family still go to this one Pandit in Varanasi, and he keeps an account of purity by going back for like 7 generations of their mothers and fathers,
Right, right.
keeping that family tree. So a
Welcome to
lot of
the
Pandits in
stream.
Varanasi still do it, right? Still practice that.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say your name because I don't think I should, but welcome to the stream. Um, let's see.
Okay, now we can go to the Madhura text, right? Madhura Sutta.
What the rest of the not you, Numplex. Mm, so, but then where does he say? So that shows that the Buddha does not support the caste system or support the idea that only Brahmins can be purified. And so this text that he cites, the Asalayana Sutta, is not saying what he's saying at all. And then see. We should maybe go into this one too. Kanakatala Sutta. I didn't read it, but I'm pretty sure that this part where he says, Great King of the four castes, noble warriors and Brahmins are held to foremost in terms of receiving homage, hospitality, salutation, and polite services. And I think that it's not because he supports that. He's saying that's the truth. Like that's the way the world works right now, right? And then he's probably going to go into, saying, despite this,
Yes.
yeah,
So let's start with Madhura Sutta first because you get the essence of what exactly is being talked about, right? So let's go to the Madhura Sutta, right?
okay,
Uh, you have the link open already there,
yeah, I
right?
do.
You can zoom in a bit, I guess, in the text. People are asking for you to zoom in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, what's the background of this one?
So this is a text where these are these are not the conversations of the Buddha. This is the conversation between a Arhant monk, Mahakassana, um, who is you know where a king of the Madurai, right? Madurai, king of Madurai is asking him the question about the four varna and their difference, right? So you can start reading it.
Okay.
So the first few lines are just about them having uh,
Just introducing the
greetings.
characters. Yeah.
So Master Kassana, the Brahmins say, that's where we can start if you want to.
Okay. Who's Master Kasana? The
Master
ascetic.
Kassana is the Arhant Bhikshu, right? He's not the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
He is among the venerable monks who had attained enlightenment then, right?
This is after the Buddha dies.
I don't remember if this sutta is after the Buddha dies or
I think
before
it
that.
does at this end say that, but fully extinguished.
Okay, yeah, clearly.
Okay.
Okay, so this sutta is about the instance that occurred after the Buddha's death, right?
Hmm.
Mahaparinirvan.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this king goes to Kachana. Kasana or Kachana?
Hmm.
Okay.
Kasara, like
Kasana.
works. Anything works, right?
Okay. Kasana, and he asks, only Brahmins are the Brahmins say only Brahmins are the best class, other classes are inferior, only Brahmins are the light class, other classes are dark. Only Brahmins are
Oh,
purified, not others.
it's not Kasara. I think it's Kassapa.
Kasapa. Okay.
Kassapa, like It's the Pali version of Kashyapa, I think. I think. We can go ahead with Kasana because that's the way it's written in Pali. So no
Okay.
worries.
Okay. And so, and then so these Brahmins are saying that only, uh, this is very, repeating what we were just reading, right? Only
Yes.
Brahmins are pure, other people are not pure.
Yes.
And then he asks, what do you have to say about this? He asks Kasana, what do you have to say about this? And Kasana replies, Great king, that's just something noised about in the world. And here's a way to understand that it's just hearsay. What do you and then he asks, suppose an aristocrat prospers in money, grain, silver, or gold. Wouldn't there be aristocrats, Brahmins, peasants, and menials who would get up before him and go to bed after him and be obliging, behaving nicely, and speaking politely?
So this is where is explaining, right? That if someone in the um, aristocrat, Brahmin, or peasants or the menials were to have a lot of money, would people not respect those people? Clearly, they would, right? Because they are respecting him out of the success, if you have to say it, right, or out of the power that he holds through his money, right? This is where people treat rich people nicely, and that's just what he's talking about. So, what's the difference between that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in the same way, uh, we can read the text further, right?
Yeah, and so then he says, suppose a Brahmin or a peasant or a menial, like a laborer, prospers. Wouldn't there
So
be,
it's repeating, right?
yeah, mm-hmm.
Repeating the same thing,
Yeah, wouldn't people be nice to them if they're rich?
right?
And so, what do you think, Great King? If this is so, are the four classes equal or not? Certainly, Kasana, in this case, the four classes are equal. I can't see any difference between them. Okay, and then he says this is another way to understand that the claims of the Brahmins are just hearsay in the world. What do you think, Great King? Take an aristocrat who kills living creatures, steals, commits sexual misconduct, and so he's listing the things that are bad to
The
do.
Sheila, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The basic Sheila he's talking about, right?
Right. And he's saying, would they have be reborn in a good place or a bad place? Such an aristocrat would be reborn in a bad place. Um, and the king says, no, yeah, he would totally be born in a bad place. Yeah, right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so then he says, take a Brahmin or a peasant or a menial who does bad things. Would they die? Would when they die, would they go to a good place or a bad place? And then the king says, well, they'd be born in a bad place. And so in this way, like based on their actions, right? Are they all treated the same? And the king says, yes, they are. And they in this case, the four classes are equal. And then he says, I have another way to see that the Brahmins, the claims of the Brahmins are just hearsay in the world. And then he says, take an aristocrat who does good things. Would they be reborn in a good place after they die? And then the king says, yes. And what about a Brahmin or a peasant or a menial who does good things? They would also be rewarded by being born in a good place, right? And so the king says, yes. And so in this case, also, the four classes are equal, right? And I don't
Right.
see any difference between them. And lastly, he says, I think this is the last one, but it doesn't matter. Next, he says, like, suppose an aristocrat breaks the law, right? And your men arrest him and bring him to you, asking you to give justice, right?
Mm.
What would you do? And the king says, I would have him executed, fined, or banished, or dealt with as befits the crime. And Kachna asks, why?
Why is that?
Because he's and the king replies, because he's lost his former status as an aristocrat and is just reckoned as a bandit. 1 second, someone asked that question. Wait, were kings primarily Kshatriyas or Brahmins? I mean, which group or caste did most of them belong to? I don't know. Does that matter? Does that profit? I don't think it profits. Let's move on.
Yeah. Yes. Skip.
Okay. And so the king says, because he's lost his former status and as an aristocrat and is just reckoned as a bandit, I would treat him the same as I would any bandit. And then he says, what about the other castes? If they were acted badly, would you punish them any differently? And the king says, no, I wouldn't. I would just treat him as a bandit, right?
Right.
And so in this way, the four classes are equal, right? Just being a Brahmin doesn't mean you get different treatment if you commit a crime.
Right.
And then he says, take an aristocrat who takes monkhood, shaves their beard, and gives up their possessions, right?
Right.
And goes from like being a householder to a monk, an ascetic. Would you treat them well? Right? Would you give them alms? Would you give them robes, lodging? Would you, uh, you know, treat them as you would a spiritual leader, I suppose? And the king says
And
yes.
there's this line in the Buddhist Vandana that we do. Uh, "Ehi passiko, ohi passiko, opanahiko." So it's like saying that these people, the Shravaka Sangha of the Buddha, is worthy of giving gifts to, is worthy of you um, giving them proper respect and proper salutations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are things about etiquette that Buddha prescribes, that the Shravaka Sangha of the Buddha should be respected. They should be given alms, and people should help them in their journey for enlightenment,
Right,
right?
right, right. And so,
But they are also worthy, but they are also worthy by their own virtue, because they have chosen this life of this homelessness. They have given up their status of whatever they used to live uh,
mm,
before this life of monkhood, right?
mm,
That's why they are worthy of getting your praise. Right?
right, right. Yeah,
That's the essence of that.
yeah, yeah. And then, so he asked the king, like, would you treat him differently just because he was an aristocrat? And he's like, no, because it has, when he took up monkhood, all that went away,
Yeah.
right? So, and then he asked, what about the other castes? Would you treat them any different? No, he would. And the king says, no, I wouldn't treat them any different. I would serve them. I would give them alms. I would give them robes, treat them well. I'd give them lodgings. I'd protect them. And the king says, um, and then he says, you know, in this, are the four classes equal? And then the king says, yes, in this case, these four classes are equal. I don't see any difference. And this is another way to understand that this is just hearsay in the world. And this is the whole idea that the Brahmins are best, other classes are inferior, etc., right?
Yes. Repeating those same words.
Right. Um, and so the king is happy with this, and he says, excellent, Master Kachana, excellent, as if he was writing the overturn, or revealing the hidden, or pointing out the path to the lost, or lighting a lamp in the dark, so people with clear eyes can see what's there. Master Kachana has made the teaching clear in many ways, right? And then this doesn't really um,
It's him just converting himself
to
to,
Buddhism.
him ordaining himself into the Bhikshu Sangha, and after this, he goes on to live his life as a monk.
Right, right. And so this isn't just him arguing against what the Brahmins are saying, right? It's also prescriptive. He's saying, as a Buddhist, don't ignore what caste people came from before they joined the sangha and
Mm.
serve them just the same as you would anybody else,
Right.
right? So
Exactly.
right, because they kind of sneak in prescriptions like this instead of like saying it right out sometimes. Yeah, and then
The third is Kanakatta Sutta, right? Kanakattala Sutta. The second one.
do you think you can take over reading? Just 'cause my throat
Sure,
is
sure.
not doing so.
No worries there. I can definitely do that.
Okay,
Right.
where should we start?
So we should start at the beginning itself, I guess.
Okay. Should I turn off the Pali translation, or not the
You can, because we clearly don't understand much Pali, right? And most of our viewers as well don't.
yeah. I only turned it on because like it very clearly says like Kshatriya,
Yes.
Brahmin, Kshatriya,
And
Vaisya,
Vaishya.
Sudra. They
Yes.
literally use those words. That's the only reason I turned it on.
Yes. So we can start. Now at the time, King Prashenijit of Kosala had arrived at Ujjain on some businesses. Then he addressed a man, please, Mr. Go to the Buddha and in my name bow with your head to his feet. Ask him if he is healthy and well, nimble, strong, and living comfortably. And then say, Sir, King Prasenajit of Kosala will come to see you today when he has finished breakfast. And after this, there is a long conversation between them about the sisters, right? And they just greet each other for a while,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but we can start like, can you go a bit higher? Can you go a bit higher?
Mm-hmm.
It's where like the claim is uh, then the king addressed a man, please minister in my name, summon this man, right? Yes, your majesty, the man replied. He did as the king asked. Then the king said to the Buddha, Sir, might the Buddha have spoken in reference to one thing, but the person believed it was something else. I think we need to know what exactly did he talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Then the king said to the Buddha, right? I have heard, sir, that the aesthetic Gautama says this. There is no aesthetic or Brahmin who will ever claim to be all knowing and all seeing, um, and see everything without exception. That is not possible. Do those who say this repeat what the Buddha has said and do not misinterpret, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the great king, those who say this do not repeat what I have said. They misinterpret me with what is false and untrue. The then King Prasenajit addressed his general, who introduced this topic of discussion to the royal compound. It was Sanjay sir, great king, the Brahmin of Akasa clan. Um then the king addressed a man, and then this goes on for a while, and then I think we can start where the Buddha says, "The great king, I recall making this statement: there is no ascetic or Brahmin who will ever know all and see all simultaneously. That is not possible. What the Buddha says appears reasonable, is what the king says, right? So the first question is about if at all there is some Brahmin or aesthetic who can know all and see all, right?
So the first one is like saying, there's no ascetic or Brahmin who will ever claim to be all knowing and all seeing.
Yes,
And the Buddha says, no, I never said that there's no one who claims that, right? But
right.
then the Buddha says, what I actually said was, there is no ascetic or Brahmin who will ever know all and see all simultaneously. That is not possible,
Yeah,
even if they
that's the
claim it.
first question, right, in the sutta. So the
Mm-hmm.
second question is this. Sir, there are these four classes: aristocrat, Brahmins, peasants, and menials. Is there any difference between them? So this is where the Buddha is replying. Of the four classes, two are said to be preeminent, right?
Mm-hmm.
The aristocrat and the Brahmins, that is when it comes to bowing down, rising up, greeting them, joined palms, and observing proper etiquettes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, we can read further, but just to give the context, like in the previous sutta, when we were reading about the Mother Sutta, right? The first example that the Venerable Kasana gives to the king is
Mm-hmm.
where any of these four classes were to have a lot of money, would all would not the other classes and
Hi,
all
Ice
these
Bar.
other classes respect him, right? Would
Mm-hmm.
they not behave in a proper etiquette, and would they not give him respect, right?
Right,
So
right.
in that sense, the Brahmins uh, are respected in the community because they are said to be the religious leaders of the community, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they are said to be the people who are of the pure born, right? And this is something that is a common notion in the society today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So same way, the kings are to be respected because, of course, even if you don't live in the Chaturvarna system of India, um, even even outside, you go to Persia and other countries, clearly the kings and the royal classes are respected. And certainly people do, from kissing the rings to, bowing down, right, in a very specific manner for the king and the queens, right?
Right,
Those are
right.
etiquettes that are followed everywhere around the world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is the Buddha talking about the current life, and is there exactly any
No, I
difference
don't know
between
if
these
that
two?
is the Buddha, because like I feel like the Buddha asks, because I feel like,
Mhm.
oh no, the Buddha is speaking, right?
Yeah, Buddha is speaking of the four
Mm-hmm.
classes. This is what the Buddha is talking about. So clearly, the Buddha is just accepting that there is this social distinction in between the classes,
In this,
right?
yeah, and then the king clarifies, and he's like, "No, I'm
Yeah.
not asking you about this life,
Yes.
but the life to come."
So, so you see, the majority of the people who would come to the Buddha and ask this question that what's the difference between the fruits of the deeds that are done by these people, right? Because according to the Shastras, the Shudras are prescribed to do the seva of the Savarnas, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that would be fruitful for them. Reading the Vedas and reading the other religious scriptures would not be fruitful for them, right?
Right, right.
So their idea about the difference and the freedom is different. That one man who is born from the womb of a lower caste woman and one man who is born from the womb of this Brahmin woman, they have different fruits for the same deeds, and clearly that's not the way that the Buddha preaches his Dhamma, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has clearly made the differentiation that that's not how karma and vipaka works, right?
Right, right.
So so when right. So this is where the Brahmins would get stuck, and they would just say, "Oh, this is the Buddha saying that the Brahmins and Kshatriyas are definitely must be respected, right?"
Right,
But
right.
that's not the case. The word preeminent, it's like a distinguished sense, right?
Right,
Even
right.
in English, that's like a distinguished sense that they are distinguished in that sense.
Having rank. Right. I mean, they have rank in this world, and in society, they have rank, and
Right.
with etiquette, they're seen as higher. But then the king clarifies, and it's like, no, 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 not about. I'm not asking you about this life. I'm asking you about the next life.
Right.
And the Buddha
The
says,
afterlife.
yeah. The Buddha says, great king, these are the five
They
factors.
should I read?
Yeah, go for it.
Great King, there are these five factors that support meditation. What five? Um, it's when a mendicant has faith in the realized one's awakening, that blessed one is perfect, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of the gods and humans, awakened, blessed. They are rarely ill or unwell. Their stomach digests well, being neither too hot nor too cold, but just right and fit for meditation. They they are not devious or deceitful. They reveal themselves honestly to the teacher or sensible spiritual companions. They live with energy roused up for giving up unskillful qualities and embracing skillful qualities. Like in my screen, it's the comments that I see. So can you scroll down a bit? Yeah.
Mm.
They are strong, staunchly vigorous, not slacking off when it comes to developing skillful qualities. They are wise. They have the wisdom of arising and passing away, which is noble, penetrative, and leads to complete ending of suffering. These are the five factors that support meditation. There are these four classes, aristocrat, Brahmins present. If they had these five factors that support meditation, that would be lasting for their uh, uh, for their welfare and happiness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he's talking about if they were enlightened, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would be lasting for their own happiness. It would not be any there would not be any difference if a man was born into a Brahmin family or a Shudra family. If both the people who come from different caste were to attain enlightenment, right?
Mm-hmm.
There
Mm-hmm.
is no difference between the fruit that they will have, right?
Right.
Then he
And
goes on and speaks about, sir, these four classes: aristocrat, Brahmin, peasants,
wait,
and
before
menials.
we move on,
Okay.
people are kind of like confused, I think, in chat about like these specific things. They're rarely ill or unwell. Their stomach digests well. And like so this part is, I think it's about how Buddhism says like, the middle way between like neglecting your body and overindulging, right?
Yes.
You have to take the
But
middle way and
but
do eat
but there's
or
another perspective to this as well.
mhm.
The mortification and avoiding the extreme clearly that harms your body, right?
Right. You want to be
Uh,
healthy. You want to do
yes,
what it takes to be healthy.
yes, clearly.
Yeah.
So the Buddhists do prescribe that if you're not capable and if you're not in a very healthy state of mind, a healthy state of physical and mental, right? Like there could be things that could be troubling you. Like let's say, for an example, your mother or your loved ones have recently died, and you're very disturbed, right? And you want to try to do meditation, but then it might not be as fruitful because clearly
Mm.
you have this disturbance from what has happened in your life, right?
Right, right.
So the Buddhists prescribe that it is important for the person to have right mental and physical health for them to perform right samadhi, right? So
Mm.
that's the basic condition. Samma samadhi cannot be achieved without having proper shila. But apart from so these are things. Let's say you are you're mm, very nice follower and very staunch follower of the shila, right? So there is very little room for you to have bad health mentally or physically, right? That's how the Buddhists talk about this. But right, I think we can move forward from this part because this is just about where the Buddhists talk about meditation and how you have to be fit, and that's a condition there.
Right. I mean, yeah, yeah, and self-aware and honest
So
and
majority of the
skillful.
time, you see,
Mm-hmm.
in Buddhist text, whenever this part of the stomach not being well comes up, you have to relate it with depression, right?
Mm.
Because that's how they teach. Because if you are depressed, you clearly have some digestive issues, is what the Buddhists believe,
Mm.
right?
I mean, it might be true. There's a gut brain connection. there.
Uh, People do say that the gut is your second brain, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so in that case, and then so the king asks, you know,
So he's asking the same question again, right?
but if they had so for these different classes, right? If they had these five factors that support meditation, would there be any difference between them? And the Buddha says, in that case, I say it is a diversity of their efforts in meditation. Suppose there was a pair of elephants or horses or oxen in training who were tamed and well trained, and there was a pair who weren't tamed or well trained. What do you think, great king? Wouldn't the pair that was well tamed and well trained perform the tasks of the tamed and reach the level of the tamed? Yes, sir. But would the pair that was not tamed and trained perform the tasks of the tamed and reach the level of the tamed, just like the tamed pair? And the king says, no. So, in the same way, there are things that must be attained by someone with faith, health, integrity, energy, and wisdom. It is not possible for faithless, unhealthy, deceitful, lazy, witless person to attain them. And but the Buddha says appears reasonable. Sir, these are the four classes: aristocrats, Brahmins, peasants, and workers. If they had the five factors that support meditation, and if they practice rightly, would there be any difference between them? The Buddha says, in that case, I say there is no difference between the freedom of one and the freedom of the other. And then this is the same anecdote or analogy that's used in the other one.
Mm.
Suppose someone took good quality wood and used it to start a fire, and another person used lower quality wood um, and made a fire. What do you think? Would there be a difference between the fire produced by the different kinds of wood that is in the flame, color, or light? And so,
At the end of the day, the flame is the same thing, right? You cannot differentiate that this flame is better or that flame is better, right?
right, right. And then the Buddha says, in the same way, when the fire has been churned by energy and produced by effort, I say that there is no difference between the freedom of one and the freedom of the other. Um, and so then he goes into another thing, but we don't have to go into that because that's not really about caste.
Yep.
Um,
We can just skip that part, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
This
So,
sutta again is something that is clearly all these three suttas are not. I don't see how these suttas support casteism, right? How,
right,
how can they? Like anyone in their right minds were to go and read the suttas would never come up with the conclusion that Buddha did not reject casteism. And that man in his first tweet is saying that it's a widespread misinterpretation or misinformation that Buddha rejected caste and um, the Varna system, right? So it's very funny because that's the same guy who is going on in the Sangam talks giving lectures on how Buddhists were not persecuted by Hindus and other stuff, right? So he gives this lectures on Buddhism.
right, right. But but
How
but his basic like assertions about Buddhism are wrong.
clearly,
Yeah,
clearly, anyone can see that.
they're not just wrong. They're like I don't know, like maliciously wrong, like
Sun and moon
purposely.
apart, right?
Right, right. It's like weird that he's misquoting or putting words in the Buddha's mouth. And what is he depending on? That like people won't do their homework,
Like, I don't know what the what kind of shit is he.
right?
It- um, like like I can start making fun of him, but out of my kindness, I'll refrain from that because um,
Because he's saying, but he's like highlighting the same text that we just read and clearly shows that there's no difference between any of the what the Buddha is saying is there's no difference between any of them. And it says right here in the same way great king, and the power that is kindled by persistence and generated by exertion, I say that there is no difference with regard to the release of one and the release of another. So he's saying, like, between all the castes, like, as long as you're persistent and exert yourself and apply yourself, there's no difference between with the enlightenment and the release that you are able to acquire, right? Which
Right.
is what he. But then he says, this guy, he's quoting the same things, and he's saying, but this it is further clarified that the first two are chief and deserve respect from the other two. Like, he never says that. He says, in the world as it is, that's the way people are behaving. But as far as purifying themselves and as far as attaining enlightenment, there's no difference.
Right. So what he's doing is just is going on and searching some very keywords that support his idea of
You cut out.
hello.
Now you're back.
Um,
Now you cut out again.
um, just give me a sec. I'll try to reconnect.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah.
Okay. So I think
No, it's cutting out again.
um okay, there seems to be an issue. Let me check if I can do something about this.
Okay.
Um, Ordinary.
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello?
So the next,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So the next sutta that we can actually,
It keeps cutting out.
uh, this is bad.
Yeah, it
I'll-
is.
Okay, I'll try to join in from a different device.
Okay. Are you on like mobile?
No, I'm on my PC right now. Yeah. I'll try to join in from my mobile.
Okay. I hope it's not me. Oh, but no, it's not because ICE is also saying that, yeah. Yeah, you go like a robot. I mean, I don't even know if we can get through everything this guy posted today because he's posted a lot of misinformation. If Buddha was alive today, he would be the ultimate chiller, teaching mindfulness and maybe running a stress crushing meditation app. I don't think so. I think if the Buddha was alive today, he would be radical and he would be fighting against injustice and the class and caste. Because like it's pretty clear that he was that back then. Like, why bother saying all this? Like, he didn't have to. He didn't have to purposely pick on the Brahmins' ideas and say the Brahmins are saying this and I don't agree. And repeatedly, right? He says it repeatedly. He could have just stuck to the meditation methodology and to how the sangha would work, right? He could have just stuck to that and not even really mentioned the Brahmins, but he didn't. He specifically took aim at what they said and specifically debated against their ideas. Yeah. Invite you. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. I invited you. Now?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Audio is worse though. Oh. But you're still
It's,
audible.
I have no idea why is this happening.
But I mean, it would be nice to have nice audio. You know what I'm saying? But I'll just turn you up on stream.
Let me see if I can do something again.
Yeah. I mean, people are saying they can hear you clearly, so I'll just turn you up.
Um, just invite me again. I'll leave and join again. Give me a
Okay.
sec.
Now?
Let's hope this works.
Please, Adani gods. Because wait, what are you? What is your internet, Geo?
Uh, 72 ms.
Okay, okay, good.
This should be fine, right?
That should be fine. Yeah, it was just like a momentary thing.
Okay. So I guess we can go to the Kula Wagga, right? Kula Wagga is the Wagga where Kula Wagga, just go and do a Google search on Kula Wagga and you will see what Kula Wagga is. Kula Wagga is a big section. So
Sutta?
not it's not a sutta. It's a big section in Tripitaka.
Okay, okay. This
So
one
it's Central
or
Sutta, right? Kula Wagga Central Sutta.
Sutta Central? This one?
Yes, yes.
Nah, this isn't the one.
No, this is not a sutta, right? This is a big discourse. That was the right link, actually.
The first one
The
here.
one that you had opened, right? We were actually going to navigate through the 9 114, right? I don't know exactly which sutta is talking about, but let's just try to see. Go back to the Central Sutta one, right? Central Sutta, right?
Sutta
So,
Central. Okay, wait. This one.
uh, yeah, exactly. This one. The lesser chapters, right? So there are in total 14 suttas in this chapter.
Hmm.
So if we were go to the ninth one, right? The ninth sutta is 2.9, right? Somewhere.
Whoa. What this one is interesting. How Brahmins through greed abandoned the good principles of their ancestors.
Yeah,
I
this is
didn't read that. Yeah.
yeah. So this is where the Buddha talks about how the Brahmins kill the cows, right?
Oh.
Yeah, that's a sutta, but we can discuss that sutta some other time, right?
Okay.
Let's go to the ninth one, right? What's morality is that's the sutta. I don't find I've read this sutta entirely, but I don't find anything objectionable, and I don't find any talk about open the Bhikkhu Sujatu one, right? This is the Pali version, right?
Hmm.
Bhikkhu Sujot's the translation that he gives, right? Bhikkhu Sujata. It's higher. The top first translation. First. Bhikkhu Sujata. English Pali 2018. Higher. Above the
Oh, okay.
Lawrence
This
guy.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want
Uh,
me to read or can you read?
No, this is a very short one, right? So this is nothing to do with caste or varna anywhere.
Okay.
Like, I don't see how this supports caste. I don't see how this supports varna.
Right. Right.
So he just quoted something out of thin air
What is he
So
saying again about this? Where is he saying? Kula. He just says Kulavaga 9 1.4, and we went to 9 1.4.
yes,
Is this 1.4?
uh,
I
Kulavaga starts with 2.1, right?
mm,
So the only logical way to go about at this is the ninth sutta. So that sutta is clearly very weird because it has nothing to do. But there are some suttas which talk about caste in his further thread. If you go back to the text, there there's the part where he's talking about the
you want to look at this one, Kanaka Tala Sutta, or
no, there are the other suttas where he just mentions uh, the numbers of the suttas, Majjhim Nikaya or the other uh,
oh,
Nikayas, right? So I'll just give you the link to those suttas which he's talking about. Just give me a sec.
okay.
Um,
Oh, these
Dhammavisha.
ones, Anguttara Nikaya.
Right. So if you go to his seventh tweet, right? Seventh, we will actually talk about the very specific text that he is talking about, right? The
Hmm.
seventh tweet, right?
According to Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha informs that Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra is based on birth and deeds of the past. He's claiming.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you open that sutta,
Mm-hmm.
I'll send you the link for that.
Okay.
Check your Discord.
Hold on. Someone in our chat is saying, tried to help out in a Brahmin kitchen once, ended up setting off a secret alarm system involving chanting and holy water. Not my finest moment. They are so paranoid. Yeah, you had to shuddhi before you did it. But the funny thing is like,
Mm.
you can just circumvent these rules just by sprinkling some like healthy water on yourself. And the chatter is like, grandma is the secret alarm system. That's so true. That is so true. Why are the like, grandmas the terrifying arbiters like of the caste system in the house, man? I'm scared of my Brahmin grandmothers too, cause they're the worst. Like one thing that I would definitely have to hide from them is if I had like a period. I would hide my pads so they wouldn't make me go be grounded.
Indian anti-judgmental system.
Exactly.
Mm.
Uh,
Okay, so the sutta that he's mentioning there is the Anguttara Nikaya, um,
did I
third
get the
part,
right one? This is a
57.
Vachagota. Udvachagota
Yes, so
Sutta.
yes, yes, Vachagota Sutta. So if you go at the top, you will see go at the top of the window, right? You see Brahmana Vagga, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brahmana Vagga, and then you see Anguttara Nikaya 357, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I do see that.
So that's the sutta that he's quoting, right? So he's talking about, according to Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha informs that Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra is based on birth and deeds of past.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this sutta, if we were to read, it's clearly not that. Um, let's try reading this. Do you want me to read, or do you want to read it?
Yeah.
I'll try to read this fast if you want to.
Sure. Do you want to start here, or it doesn't really have anything to do with
Okay.
caste yet, is it?
In the beginning, it has nothing to do with caste.
I don't
So
see
the first question,
anything to do with caste, but okay, sorry, go ahead.
it has, but like you have to get the clear picture of what is the thing that is being talked about here, right?
Okay.
So the first question that is being asked by the Vachagotta, Then the wanderer Vachagutta went up to the Buddha and exchanged greeting with him. When the greetings and polite conversation were over, he sat down to one side and said to the Buddha, I have heard, Mr. Gautama, that the ascetic Gautama says this: gifts should be only be given to me, not to others. Gifts should only be given to my disciple, not to the disciple of others. Only what is given to me is fruitful, not what is given to others. Only what is given to my disciples is very fruitful and not what is given to the disciples of others. So this is where a Brahmin comes up to this is like a sannyasi, right?
Yeah, he's not a
Vajrayana.
Brahmin. He's just a sannyasi, right?
Yeah, he's a sannyasi. You can call him aesthetic as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he comes up to the Buddha and he's talking about like you. I've heard that you say that only the gifts that you give to the Buddha and his sangha are fruitful, and the gifts that are given to other people and other aesthetics and their disciples are not fruitful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's asking this question, and then he goes, "I trust that I trust that those who say this repeat what Buddha has said and do not misinterpret him with an untruth." Uh,
Mm-hmm.
is there an explanation in this line with the teaching? Is there any legitimate grounds for the rebuttal and criticism? For we don't know what to misinterpret, Miss Gautama.
Yeah.
Vacha, those who say this do not repeat what I have said. They misinterpret me with what is false and untrue. Anyone who prevents from giving
Mm-hmm.
makes an obstacle and a barrier for three people.
Mm-hmm.
What three? The giver is obstructed from giving merit.
For making
The
merit, yeah.
receiver is obstructed from getting what is offered,
Mm-hmm.
and they have already broken and damaged themselves. Anyone
Mm-hmm.
who prevents another from giving makes an obstacle and barrier for these three people.
Mm-hmm.
Vacha, this is what I say. Even if you make uh, this is what I say. You even make merit by tipping out dish washing water in a cesspool or a sum with living creatures in it, thinking, may any creatures be nourished. Uh, how much more than for human beings, right? So he's clearly talking about like you can go to you can just give some small water to small creatures and say, may this creature be nourished. And even that is fruitful, and even that is something that gives you merit,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
However, I also say that a gift to an ethical person is more fruitful than to an unethical person. They have given up five factors and possess five factors. So he discusses about the five factors. Those are sensual desires, ill will, dullness, drowsiness, restlessness, and remorse and doubt. These are the five factors that they have given up. What are the five factors that they possess? And adept ethics, immersion, wisdom, freedom, knowledge, and vision of freedom. These are the five factors that they possess. I say that a gift to anyone who has given up these five factors and possess these five factors is very fruitful.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the part, right? So he's explaining cow may be black or white, red or tanny, uh, moated or uniform, or pigeon colored.
Mm-hmm.
But when one is born among them, the bull that's tamed, a behemoth, powerful, well paced in pulling forward, they yoke the load just to him, regardless of his color, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's explaining how different types of cows, when they are tamed, they can do the same amount of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what color they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it is for humans,
Oh,
wherever they
sorry.
may be born.
My I didn't realize my
Video
camera.
is off.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. My camera is off because I need to switch the battery. Sorry, guys. Why didn't you tell me?
Okay, I was reading
Not you,
from my
not
own
you,
screen
not you.
actually.
I was asking chat. Chat, why didn't you tell me? Sorry, guys. I didn't know. Numblex. I didn't. This is your fault, Netflix.
Okay, should I continue reading while you're at it?
Oh no, no. I know it, Ice Barf. It wasn't. This is also your fault, Ice Barf. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the part where the four varnas come in, right? So, so is it for a human, whether wherever they may be born, among aristocrats, Brahmin, peasants, menials, or corpse workers, scavengers, one is born among them, tamed true to their vows, firm in principle, accomplished in ethical conduct, truthful, right? They have given up birth and death, complete in the spiritual journey with burden put down, detached. They have completed the task and are free of defilements, gone beyond all things. They have extinguished by not grasping in the flawless field. A religious denouement is abundant. Fools who don't understand, stupid, unlearned, give their gift to those outside and don't attend the peaceful ones. Right? So the way that Buddha, in the sense that he's talking about the caste here, is that wherever a person might have been born in, right, from a
Mm,
Brahmin womb or a scavenger womb or a menial family or a peasant family,
mm-hmm,
if they are tamed, as in,
mm-hmm,
if they are firm in principle, accomplished in ethical conduct, truthful, and they have basically completed their spiritual journey,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right? So if you give fruits to these people, it does not matter if they are from Brahmin caste or Shudra caste. They are the member of the Sangha, and they are any fruit, any dana that you give to the Sangha, it will give you fruits,
mm-hmm.
and it is very abundant in fruit,
Right,
right?
right.
So, so I don't see how this sutta again is casteist in any way.
I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I guess it's at the end they say, they get the good karma and they're born here in a good family. But I don't see that that means like they. That doesn't mean the same as what like Brahmins
Yeah,
say. It
because
doesn't.
in
He's
his
not
tweet,
saying you'll
he's
move up
talking
in the
about
caste
Buddha.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, because in his tweet, he's talking about Buddha informs that Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra is based on the birth and deeds of past.
Mm.
But that's clearly not the case, right? Even in the sutta that he himself he has posted on his own Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
the line goes like so too among human beings, any kind of birth among Kshatriya, Vaishya, anyone who is tamed, right,
Mm-hmm.
giving fruit to them. Eh, these are the same lines that we have just read. So,
Right.
like,
Right.
how can one be so dumb-wit and how can one be so stupid as to not read the entire sutta and just, um,
Right. Right. I mean, he just said like whether they're a Kshatriya, Brahmin, or peasant, Sudra, or even an untouchable that's like
right,
corpse workers and
yes,
scavengers. If any one of those people, if they are tamed, true to their vows, firm in principle, if they've done the monk stuff, right?
yes,
Then you can give them a
fruit,
donation, a religious
yes,
donation, and you will get the same like karma,
abundant fruit, right?
yeah, karmic,
So, according to
merit.
Buddha, helping anyone and giving to the others is meritorious, right?
Right.
That will give you merit. But he's talking about like this is the Buddhist notion that if you become a participant in the journey of a monk who is to attain enlightenment in this life or the next, you
Mm-hmm.
help him in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
That the fruits that you get from those donations are really very big and they are very abundant, right?
Right.
So this is the
But he's
notion that
saying
the
like
Buddhists have.
despite whatever the birth of the person is if he's freed himself from attachments, if he's tamed himself, if he's cultivated
Yes.
himself, and spiritually cultivated himself, you can if you give him like alms, you will make merit. You will make
Yes.
abundant merit, and it doesn't. And that's like in contrast to what Brahmins say, which is like you can only make you can only get good karma if you give things to Brahmins. Is basically what they say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So that's the other sutta.
yeah,
So
but
there are
then
some
he's
other.
like
There
here
are
is
some
like
other.
born here in a good family, but that doesn't mean good family doesn't mean you've re- reincarnated an upper caste. Like
Hmm.
you can still be he in other cases like he's already said like a peasant or a menial can make money, can become wealthy, and all you
Yeah.
need is the kind of like situation in life where you can be healthy, right?
Yes. So this is the other sutta, and there are a few more. We can discuss those as well because the other suttas are quite short and they're not pretty big, so we can complete them. I think.
I'm kind of tired to be honest because I'm still recovering from a cough. So
Okay.
but we should do it again. We should keep going on this because this guy's given us a lot of reaction content.
Yep.
So, are you if you're
And
down for it, I'm down for it. It's just my throat is
yeah,
giving out.
I'm clearly down for it. So the next tweet is the eighth tweet, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So the Sutta Nipita 104 is the sutta that he's referring to. So I'm sending you the link. Check it out. Uh,
I am really tired out though. Um let's do it on a
I,
different day.
okay, sure.
Yeah.
Works for me. Works for me.
Okay. Cool. Well,
But
thanks
I
for coming.
but I think we've clearly, established the part that these guys have clearly not read what the entire sutta are, right? And they are spreading so much of misinformation out there.
Right. This is true. This is true. Do you want
His
to
reach,
invite the viewers to your server?
if anyone wants to join in, I'll send you a link.
Here, I'll just put a link in the chat. You can join Shakya's server, and he does Dhamma talks,
Uh,
and you can he does readings, and also someone Rinzen does a daily Dharma post, and
Dhammapada lines.
yeah, and does interpretations, which are very helpful, very good. So it's a good server. If you guys like this, you'll love the server. Uh, Seems like the Buddha's medial prefrontal cortex was on overdrive. Dude was so maxed out on feeling everyone's pain. He had to preach peace and love in a world that ran on every man for himself. Talk about a cosmic case of empathy overload. I don't know if it's overload. It's just like it's like compassion is a muscle, right? But it's a compassion and aggression. They're contradictory muscles, right? And aggression is going to put you in the headspace where you suffer a lot because you want a lot and you desire a lot, and you're also worried about other people taking it away from you. And so it makes life really full of suffering if you cultivate your aggression muscle. But the antidote is the compassion muscle. So if you cultivate loving kindness for everybody, and detach from the aggression and understand yourself and why you're so desperate for things, and then understand why other people are so desperate for things, and come at it with compassion and understanding, then you free yourself from that aggressive mindset that causes so much of the negativity that you have, that we feel. Yeah. So, oh, I see. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, Numplex. It's not easy. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. And we'll definitely do this. I think we should do this follow up in this week. Just my throat needs to recover.
Okay, guys, I think that's it. See ya.
Yeah. See you
Bye
guys.
bye.
Bye.